Welcome to The Fully Mindful, where we explore what it means to live with intention, creativity, authenticity, and connection. I'm your host, Melissa Chareau, mindfulness and breathwork facilitator, neurodivergent lawyer and coach, and fellow human navigating this wild and beautiful ride we call life. On this podcast, we dive deep with interviews featuring inspiring guests, share solo mini episodes packed with guided mindfulness practices to help you center and thrive, and mix things up with tangents and sidebars, where my friend and fellow podcaster Debbie Harrell from the New World Normal joins me for some real, random, and meaningful conversations. So if you're ready to pause, reflect, and expand, you're in the right place. Let's get fully mindful. Hey everybody, Melissa here from The Fully Mindful. Very excited today for you to hear my conversation with Josh Stewart. Josh Stewart is a self-described American nobody. Yes, I said it. Those are his words, not mine. He's a musician, writer, and author of the book Landing Mediocrity, Reflections of an Underperformer, which you absolutely must read, and I'll put how you can find it in the show notes. Josh is as passionate as he is intense and funny and deeply feeling. We talk about everything around what motivated him to write this memoir, Landing Mediocrity, how we regular folk and others should write, and what it's like to get outside, to find oneself, traveling to learn about cultivating compassion, and all of it. We also talk about Josh's desire to connect and find relief from his own anxiety and depression. So sit back, enjoy this conversation, which I know you'll find as interesting as I do. Feel free to comment, as always, and we'll see you on the other side. All right. Hey, everybody. This is Melissa with The Fully Mindful, and I am joined today, excitingly, by Josh Stewart, also known as Joshua Stewart. In his printed name. He is someone I've known kind of in a weird, interesting way, and maybe we'll get into that for quite some time. He is an author. He has a newsletter called The Mediocre Observer, Bearing Witness to Subtle Insanity. Doesn't that sound intriguing? And he also has a published book, which is a lot more than most of us can say, and it's 356 awesome pages long. It is called Landing Mediocrity, Reflections of an Underperformer. Looking forward to talking about that. And so welcome to Josh. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm Melissa.
Hey.
I'm so excited to be here and to virtually see you. This is the closest to seeing you in person, as I think has been around 8 years or so, or more maybe, since I've actually seen you in the flesh. So it's cool to This is close. This seems close. This is pandemic seeing someone. So
pandemic close, exactly. Well, we're a little bit post-pandemic, maybe. So if somebody's listening to this in the future, this might be one of those prescient moments where you're like, "Oh shit, everything fell apart after that." Isn't that funny? They thought everything was. So hopefully not, but I'm very excited to see you. Yeah, you've now lived back in Colorado. Has it been 8 years? Is that how long it's been?
Around 7 years, I think. 7 or 8 years, yeah.
7 or 8 years. So where in Colorado are you living?
I'm in Aurora, which is a pretty expansive town, sort of southeast Denver-ish. So yeah.
Well, and that probably works out for you to be in Colorado because you like to be outdoorsy, right?
For sure, I do. And forgive me, I hope that I feel like I sound like the before person on an Allegra commercial right now. My allergies exploded about 2 weeks ago. We had a terrific rainstorm for like 2 days, which you just don't see in Colorado. Very typical in Portland. You don't see a lot in Colorado. And I would have assumed that would clear the air, but what happened instead is directly following that, everything exploded with pollen. It's super dry here, so it's just been windy and crazy, and my face just blew up. So forgive me if I'm, for the people who are into that, voice sound real close. I'm probably not very pleasing right now with my stuffiness. So.
Oh, you're fine. Earlier today, the same exact thing happened here. So in Portland, we had this crazy rainstorm on Sunday mean, literally, you know how normally it rains here and it's just kind of this subtle like rain, constant rain. It was like, it came down. And today I was sitting on the deck and I just had this like crazy coughing attack, those coughing attacks where you're like, oh crap, like the only other person here is my dog. Like what'll happen if I can't stop coughing? So I'm there right there with you. So hopefully we'll get along and people will hear us just fine. So don't worry.
All right.
So Colorado is a very kind of outdoorsy place. That's something that's right up your alley. If I remember correctly, like you're really into it.
Well, I am. I think you and I were talking before this pod about just sort of being right here right now, and there's a lot that I get out of getting out and being out in the on a trail somewhere, to just kind of break life down to more simple terms, whether it's a full-blown backpacking trip, or just a simple day hike or even a mountain bike or something, but it's still a stripped down life, no technology, sun, water, food, ambulating around. It's God, I get relief from that. Man, I get such a sense of peace and a reminder of how okay I am sometimes, and how perhaps not I can get so deep in it that I can't see past my own nose at times, with life's little trivial distractions, and sometimes it is just so valuable for me to be out there. So anyways, yeah, but if I had my druthers, I would pretty much spend my life out there shirtless in the sun, roasting, constantly, just being outdoors all the time. I just love it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm one of those people, I need to move my body regularly. And there was a point a couple of years ago where I had this stupid foot injury. And at one point, wasn't the doctor, but the physician's assistant sort of told me, like, you're out of commission for, the foreseeable future. And I remember going out into my car and just crying because I thought, I don't know how I can do life without being outside and physical. Because as much as I like meditating and, being mindful and doing all of that, my first experience with meditation or mindfulness was being outside running. That's it. And so like, that's the first time my mind ever slowed down for even, for a moment at all, was by moving my body in nature.
Yeah.
And, and I think I even did that, some of the listeners may know a little bit of my story, but before I got sober, I remember I still would get that kind of relief, even then. Like I'd get out on my mountain bike, half hungover and maybe stop halfway through and smoke a cigarette. But, I still got the relief from moving my body. So I very much relate with that. Is that something that you get to do sort of on the daily, or are you more of the weekend warrior type just because of work and things like that?
Well, it depends on what the activity is. I mean, I will tell you that, on the rare occasion that I can be troubled to meditate these days, because I just, I've kind of graduated past all that. Not kidding, of course. But when I do sit in an enclosed, I'm in a building or in a house or in a room or something, the first thing if I'm going to do some sort of visualization, I'm probably going to visualize one of these lovely outdoor places with the sun and the dirt and the water. And it's so, when you mentioned how these outdoor things can be meditative, when I meditate, that's probably where I'm going to kind of try to take myself. I'm going to try to transport myself to that quote unquote place, whether it's imagined or a real place that I'm remembering, to sort of capture that sort of piece of being connected with the planet and with, with life in its simple, form. So, but yeah, I do a lot of running these days. And you mentioned an injury. There was I have degenerating discs in my back, and this was something that I got diagnosed with. I want to say I was around 35. I'm 46 now, and I had yeah, it was, boy, you talk about some mental gymnastics that I was going through. I immediately went to, okay, so I'm going to be unable to function, work, walk around. I'm going to be crippled. I'm going to be broke. Obviously, I'll be unlovable. I'll be, homeless. Everybody's just going to gather up in a circle, point at me and say, what a loser, and then piss on me. That's what's obviously going to happen.
Obviously.
Right. Obviously. We're still tracking towards that. I'm sure it's coming. But no, the mental stuff when, my body started to just say, yeah, we're going to have, arthritis now, and it's the kind of grinding bone on bone feelings and the aches and the shooting pains and the loss of feeling in my legs and all those things. It was terrifying. One of the things I was told is you should stop jumping up and down on your spine. You should stop running. And I did for lots of years. And I tried to find other things that I could do, which is a whole different journey, a whole different story. But more recently, over the last 3 years, I have started running again. And setting aside the good or bad idea of that, I am so happy to be running again. It is. So I do that usually about 3 to 4 times a week. I try to do it about every other day. So at least that often I am getting outside. I'll just run right out of my driveway. I've got some awesome trails near here. I get to see pronghorn, giant owls, saw a couple bald eagles the other day, a lot of snakes. There's just some awesome being out in it right here in my neighborhood. So I do that very regularly. And then, yeah, I'm more of a weekend warrior on the actual formal hikes and backpacking stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. I too was told, not just that I shouldn't be doing anything for the foreseeable future, but that I was sort of done running unless I wanted to shatter my ankle. And I kept seeing different doctors wanting to get different opinions who might disagree with that. And, I finally saw someone who actually, it shocked the hell out of me. He actually looked at my paperwork before walking in the door to talk to me. It was amazing. It was like, oh, this is how medicine is supposed to work. And he sort of said, he gave me hope. He was like, I think you probably can. It just probably won't feel that great. And I was like, I can live with that.
That's what I've been waiting for.
Yeah, I can live with that. And so, yeah, I remember the first time I went running, and it had been a very long time. And it was so humbling because I don't know about you, you're in much better shape than me, but it was I remember they told me oh, well, why don't you try running for 20 seconds and then walk for 3 minutes? And I was like, oh, for real? Not that I was ever any sort of athlete, but I certainly could run for more than 20 seconds at a time. And I'm so glad they told me that because that's what I had to do for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so now it's a whole different story. And, like you, I'm super grateful that I can run, and I'll just do it as long as I can. And yeah, there are other things, like you said, like hiking or maybe mountain biking or, other activities. But for this person, for this crazy mind, I need the endorphins and the movement with all of my body. So I hear that. That's really cool that you have trails right outside your door. So is it true nature trails, or is it just neighborhood trails and you just happen to have all these great big animals that are there? Or
well, so the pronghorn, which by the way is the second fastest land mammal on Earth. They used to be hunted by the now extinct white American cheetah. So just some interesting trivia there. Pronghorn are not antelope. They're actually more genetically similar to giraffe. So I know I'm dropping a lot here. This is going to be 12 podcasts. So
yeah,
line them up and let your listeners pick their favorite. But no, so those epic animals and the bald eagles that are nesting in this area, there is this awesome conservation area over here that I've more recently started volunteering with. They have, it's just this large expanse. I don't know how big it is, but it's set up specifically for that. And there's a lot of undeveloped area in Colorado. I mean, I've on the same run, I've chased coyotes. Like I'll be jogging and they'll see me coming and they'll just keep running, and then I'll come around the corner and they'll run again. But so although it's a neighborhood, my neighborhood is right next to this conservation area. So on one side you got all these animals, and on the other side you got houses. So yeah, it's pretty lovely. And I mean, I get owls in my backyard that are just enormous, just monstrous birds that, scare the hell out of you when they take flight. And yeah, we have some pretty cool stuff around here. So
it's really, I mean, Oregon also has some pretty cool stuff, but we don't usually see it here in Portland that close up. I mean, coyotes for sure, but we're lucky if we see some bunnies, and some rats. That's about it. Every once in a while there's like a garden snake, but it's pretty, I don't know. It's not like, even when I lived in California, you would see, I mean, it would scare me, but you could see mountain lions. And I don't know, do you have mountain lions there?
We do. Now I've never actually seen one myself. I don't know if they've ever seen me. We just had somebody I know saw one up at Red Rocks, right around the park there, the famous amphitheater up there, which has lovely trails all around it and awesome hiking and mountain biking. And I've seen a lot of rattlesnakes over there. I've never seen a mountain lion, but apparently there's one just right over there.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of snakes, but I'm also probably not a big fan of mountain lions. I mean, I like them and I like snakes too, but I don't want to run into them on the trail.
Yeah, mountain lions are one of those animals that would scare me for sure. I've seen foxes, coyotes don't really scare me. They tend to be pretty timid. Mountain lions, they might come at you. They're pretty serious animals. Yeah, they're badass. Love to see them. Love to know that they're somewhere away from me. And
right, but yeah, you don't want to be too close to them. So, but you've done some pretty significant hiking though, too, right? Like,
I mean, I guess significant for me, significant for, a guy who spent 14 years trying to ruin himself and then
yeah,
finally figured out how backpacks work and started trying to do that. So, I'm just an old guy trying to stay in shape these days. So, I mean, I don't do anything epic or ridiculous. I've never, conquered the PCT or anything. But I've done some fantastic pieces of it and enjoyed some just lovely hikes.
It would be so cool, and for the listeners too. I got to figure out some way to have my sister and my brother-in-law have done the whole PCT, and then they've also done the Appalachian Trail, and then they've also done. They're currently on a 17-country tour through Europe. This is what happens when you're French and you can take time off because they pay you, and you can have your job when you go back and do cool stuff like that. But I haven't figured out how to get them on the podcast yet because I'm not fluent in French, so would not be able to translate. But they have some of the most amazing stories that I think you, Josh, would probably really enjoy. Like, I could see someone like you, like, making a book out of that. Like, I mean, and we'll talk about your book in a second, but because I really do want to get into that. But like, those kinds of adventures, I mean, I wish more people in our country had the time and space to do that. I mean, we spend all of our time, you have a day job, right? And so, and maybe you even like your day job, but like, we don't get to have much time away from our day jobs.
Well, and it's, it's kind of a double-edged sword because I expect that following this podcast, I'm immediately going to be like a podcast megastar, obviously.
Of course. Right.
The talk show circuit, limousine, champagne, after parties. I don't know. That's what I'm expecting.
Right. This is what happens when people go on podcasts. Yes, that's yeah.
So probably less time for the hiking and everything, but no. So really, the book that got me. So one of my very favorite books of all time is Wild by Cheryl Strayed. Have you ever read Wild?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so oddly enough, I kept being directed to that book when I was actually looking up books about backpacking. I was just trying to get like guidebooks on how to get ready to go backpacking, what to know, what to pack, how to plan your trips, all those things. And they kept sending me back to this memoir. And I'm like, I don't want the, but I finally, okay, fine. I finally read this thing. Oh my God. Everything about it, from the perils of the trail to her emotional disclosures along the way and the flashbacks and all the things. But even when she was in such dire straits and was terrified whether she was going to, get dehydrated and die because the place she thought was a water source was running out, all those moments.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to have that experience. I just wanted to be in it. And it was, that was such a powerful book to me. And it was definitely a thing that I was already interested in backpacking, and that got me even more into it.
Do you think you could ever, do something like that? Like a more extended trip like that?
I think I physically could. I think I'm probably physically capable. There's always the time and the, taking that large amount of time to just go do that, and while you keep your other financial plates spinning and whatever those things are. But and I'll be honest, backpacking is painful. It is brutal. Another to juxtapose that with another great book, A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson, one of my favorite travel authors. Hilarious guy.
I love that book. That's such a great book.
Absolutely awesome, right? I don't know if you ever saw the horrible movie with Nick Nolte and he was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, film festival guy, Robert Redford. Awful movie. Now, if you look at Reese Witherspoon's portrayal in Wild, how she was just beat up from the feet up, almost right out of the gate. You barely lift her backpack. She's in pain. She's bloody. She's, well, then you look at those guys and they're like 3 or 4 days into the Appalachian Trail, and they look like their backpacks still have their tags on them. They're all fresh and clean and light. They're just walking, like, oh, no, stop it. You feel them grinding into your hips and into your shoulders are getting all tweaked out and tight. It's just immediate. You start feeling all the feelings of that backpacking, and it's an event. You're doing it. You're backpacking. It's not just.
Well, and what I think Cheryl Strayed put out in her book too is the emotional difficulty of being alone with oneself.
Yeah.
That's something else. To me, that's, yes, it's physically challenged. There's no physically challenging, no question. But that being alone with oneself for that extended period of time, particularly for Cheryl Strayed, who, when she was doing it, it was not, she wasn't, the healthiest. So, at least for pieces of it. So, so that's why I asked, is it something that you could do physically? I'm, for the listeners, I'm looking at a very fit, does not look 45, 46, whatever you are, more like 35, very fit person. Undoubtedly, you could physically do it. Do you think you could do it emotionally?
Oh, can I do it emotionally?
Yeah.
It is a mind thing, right? It would, I don't know. I don't know that I could psych myself up to undertake it, because I've had little taste of it enough to know that even a few day backpacking trip can be such a grueler. And to stare it down the barrel of that undertaking. And maybe part of it is because I tend to be a bit of a committer. And so once I say I'm doing this, I'm going to go from Mexico to Canada, boy, I'm probably going to be pretty determined to go from Mexico to Canada. And I'm not sure I don't know if I want to. So yeah, I don't know, but I will say that I am definitely one of these people who, whether I'm out running and listening to something, whether it's music or a podcast or something, that occupies a good deal of various parts of my mind. And then I've still got the other stuff going. So I'm very much one of these people who it's not my default setting to sit in a silent room. It is not easy for me to sit there and just be. That is a practice that I have to determine to undertake, and I don't often determine to undertake it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, it's a practice, not a perfect, that's for sure. And I won't get on my soapbox too much here, but maybe just a little bit, which is that, we find mindfulness wherever we are. And it doesn't have to be sitting on a cushion quiet. Yes, there's something really beautiful that can happen there, but something equally as beautiful when we're, completely aware of what's going on with ourselves and in our external world when we're out on a walk or a hike or on a run. And I've had, people far more experienced than me as a meditator, teachers of mine who have said the same, that it's all about the awareness in the present moment, whatever the present moment is bringing you.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of that, I really want to get into, you wrote a book. I think, what has it been, a year or two now? A year?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, everybody, this is Melissa with The Fully Mindful. It's the new year, and I bet you're feeling the need to unlock your full potential and embrace empowerment, or maybe something completely different. Well, I'm excited to offer a new program with one-on-one breathwork and coaching sessions. We'll embark on a truly transformative journey of self-discovery, combining conscious, connected breathwork and embodiment coaching, and more. So contact me, Melissa, at The Fully Mindful, for your transformative session today.
Boy, yeah, it's got to be about almost 2 years, I suspect. I finished it, or maybe a year and a half, yeah.
And again, it's called, if I've got it right, Landing Mediocrity, Reflections of an Underperformer. What got into your brain that you're like, I think I'm going to write a book? A long book, not like a short, and I'm going to write like a nonfiction book. Like, I'm writing the real deal.
Look, Melissa, I get it. It's painfully long. It's a slog. So what's funny is I've always enjoyed wordplay and tasty, powerful language. And I'm not suggesting for a second that I'm capable of the types of things that I enjoy with it, but I have, so I'm a huge fan of books that I'm a fan of. And there's only a small handful that do for me what I seek in a book. And that is that they kind of club me over the head and drag me through it. Like right out of the gate, just thwap, and I can't stop, and when I'm away from the book, I'm thinking about it. I can't wait to get back to it. It is so few and far between. And Wild was one of those to me. My very favorite book of all time is a lovely piece called Love Me Back by Merritt Tierce. That is a raw, painful, gritty, awful, fantastic novel. It's framed as a novel. Boy, it reads like a memoir. And I don't know that any fiction writer is capable of not importing a lot of their own experience and feeling and conveying that, even if it's a fictional story. But so there's a handful of these things. And so I don't know where I'm going with that, other than to say, when I've enjoyed writing for a long time and toying with it and writing little articles and writing, epic Facebook rants and things like that, because I appreciate language. I appreciate rhetoric. I appreciate the power of words to stir and elicit reactions and convey emotion and all those things. and even in like politics, and in watching it change worlds, but I never did a whole lot with it much past that until I found myself just in a place of just tremendous pain. And I'm not kidding. I don't know that it was as much of a decision that I'm gonna go write a book now. Is it just started kind of happening? And for many years, I had little false starts at writing a book. I had all these various ideas and these cobbled together monstrous, little bits and pieces of things I thought would turn into something, and they just never got traction. Whereas this one, and I'm sure, I suspect you know what I mean, when you're inspired with something, it just happens. It just kind of falls out of you. And that was what happened with this. And it was one of those, like, whatever this turns into, I need to write this. This needs to get out of me. It needs to get on paper. This needs to happen. And then we'll kind of go from there. I will tell you, there are so many things I didn't know, that I wish I knew now, that, we learn as we go, but yeah, I found writing this book almost as compelling as reading some of my favorite books. I couldn't wait to get back to it and to get more out. I needed this out. It was almost like I was purging myself of things that just needed to hit the paper, and I didn't know what was going to come of it, but I hope that for the most part, what I wound up with was something that people can relate to, the emotion in it, and in the pain, because I just found myself in a tough, dark spot, man, that I know we've all had our own version of, and this just happened for me to be a very recent, very fresh, very powerful heartbreak, followed with the rapid deterioration and passing of my best friend Buster, my black lab, which then resulted in me blowing out of a band I had built from the ground up, piece by piece, and then blowing out of my job, and just, I just kind of dismantled myself in rapid, these little pieces of my life I dismantled in rapid succession, and was just gutted. I was just gutted, and out of that came this little book, or this giant long book.
How I'm just curious, because you make it sound as if it just fell out of you, and I totally understand that experience, and that it's like a compulsion. How long did it take you to write this?
I think the content took about 6 months to write.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously there's all the after work that happens, but
yeah.
So, tell us a little bit. I did not, I confess, read the entire book because I haven't had time since.
You didn't have time. It's a 350 page, So.
But I did read pieces of it, and for anyone who's looking for, at some points fucking hilarious, and some points just totally gut-wrenchingly painful, and other points irreverent, and just totally at all points brutally honest. People should read this book. That's my takeaway from the bits and pieces that I've read. It's honest.
That's a takeaway I could live with. That is beautiful. And I will tell you that my hope always in writing and with communicating with my fellows is meaningful connection, and I crave just profound connection with people. And I have been pleased that with a handful of folks, they have found deep, meaningful connection with that book, and with other things I've written, with other articles and stuff. But it means so much to me when something I put on paper, some stranger goes, dude, that's me. I've been that. I've been there. That, and it's so awesome. Because that's what I offer. It's not like, I had somebody tell me a while back that they didn't agree with everything in the book or something. And it's like, well, yeah, I don't agree with everything in the book. It's not a fucking guidebook. Please don't take it to be some suggestion for how you ought to behave in the world. This was a floundering, faltering, flailing human doing the best he could figure out to deal with a tough time, and then sort of reflecting back on how he got here and reviewing all of those horrible decisions. So this was never intended to be like, and here's how it should go, so.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It's a memoir. So yeah, it's never, I guess there are some memoirs, maybe Obama or Michelle Obama or somebody, where like, oh yes, this is how you ought to live a life. But, for us regular people, just sort of floundering around, I think, I don't know, having the courage to be that vulnerable and really to like examine one's life in that manner and then put it out there for everyone to read. Yeah. That's a lot of courage. Or stupidity. I've been told, like, I've been on a couple of podcasts where I'm pretty, honest and about my life, and people are like, oh my God, how can you say that stuff? And it's like, yeah, I get that, but also like, how can I not?
Yeah. Yeah. How can I not? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, our culture, we spend so much of our lives collectively sort of denying who we are and what we think and what we experience so that it'll all be okay and nobody will know. And so it's like I think we have to start being honest about who we are and what we really experience to have that connection that you're talking about. Because otherwise we're just missing each other because nobody's being real.
Yeah, I'm letting you just so deep and showing you only so much, and so you only can know me so much, and we enjoy some surface level bullshit relationship that I can't tolerate for long. I can't do those.
Right.
Yeah, and life is, and regardless of how charmed your life has been, it's messy and shitty and awkward and painful and regrettable and tragic and hilarious and glorious and passionate, and we've all got all of those things, all of those highs and lows of our own. We all have that.
Yeah.
And that's, that is life, is this full spectrum experience from your very, very, very worst moment to your very, 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 best, maybe our own version of that. And I have a hard time relating to people that, everything's always fine. Okay, well, if it is, either you're full of shit or I just can't really relate to you meaningfully, because that is just not my experience, and so, and it may not be that you're full of shit. Maybe that really is where you're at. Awesome, man. Good for you. I can't, I'm unlikely to really click with people who are just like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is awesome if people can be happy all the time. I don't buy it. I guess I've met too many human beings who've seemed a certain way on the outside. And when you get into a conversation with them, if they're willing, shit gets real. People are experiencing, like you said, the whole variety of experience, from pain to total, utter, euphoric joy and everything in between. And, I was listening to a podcast with Brene Brown, and I think she was talking about her new book and the Atlas of the Heart. And she was talking about how, I think I love her because she's a researcher. I don't know if you have read any of her stuff, but I always love somebody who's like a scientist. And she's also very disarmingly honest, which I love. And she's funny. But she was talking about how they did a study and we have like 84 emotions, but most people could name like 3 or 4. And I was like, oh my God, what does this say about us? That, we have this full range, and 84 is probably undercounting, but like that's how many they were able to identify separately. Yeah. And I mean, at least in your book, I mean, I don't know how many emotions were in there, but more than 4.
Well, good. I think I've experienced more than 4, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for people to read it. And, I mean, it is honest, and you did experience some things in your life. I mean, you reflect upon, I mean, all kinds of anything from, gosh, you've had some interesting connections with the police. You've had some interesting interactions with alcohol and other substances, with relationships, with, other human beings, with your dog, with travel and the experience of travel. And all of that is in there, which I love. And it's also in your newsletter. Like, you literally can look at the subject matter, and like, there's everything from like alcoholism to like Egypt to like, other parts of Africa to like God to, am I getting all the subjects right? Like,
it really is just brain dribble from me to you. Yeah. Whatever I was inspired at that moment.
So, do you have plans to write another book, or was this just the one, you think?
So I have plans to for sure keep writing, and I would love to write another book. I want to touch on one thing real quick. You travel, and we talked about hiking, and it is. I do think there are so many things as I examine, our country and its current state, and my fellows in the state that we are all in collectively. And there are so many of these things that I do so wish we all did more of. And travel is certainly one of them. Man, if you know, for so many folks, and I know this is not an easy thing. This is something that most Americans just can't justify, just can't do, and that is a fucking tragedy because there are so many life-changing, perception-shifting experiences to be found abroad when you view other cultures and other political climates and other policies and how they work and how the people experience them. And for example, going to Cairo and wandering around with long guns on every corner and turrets and bomb sniffing dogs and bombed out buildings. And, this used to be the pinnacle of civilization anywhere, ever at one point. And it is in this state of real tenuous, debased currency and all. It's fascinating in the will of the people that overthrew their government. They overthrew their Muslim Brotherhood sympathizing, leader. Just some of these things to go see this and talk to the people and go, oh, these are people who want to run their own country. They want a democracy, and then I juxtapose that to what we've been watching here at home and sort of a floundering effort to overrun a building as an effort to overtake democracy, overturn an election. And it's really hard. And I absolutely mean to get political right here. It's just, it's hard to think, boy, if all of us have sort of seen and at least had a taste of what an overthrown government results in, what that looks like and feels like, I have a tough time believing that would have been the aim. I have a tough time believing that half-cocked plan of, well, let's change this, and that's really as far as we've gotten. It's sort of some of these things, traveling and, like you say, getting outside, getting out, and you look at the health that we all have. Man, we don't know how to cook. We don't know how to cook food from scratch. We buy cans, and we have to because that's all we can afford because it's cheaper. And we have these backwards policies that have engendered these generational sort of unfortunate decisions that a lot of families have no choice but to make. Of it's more hamburger helper tonight. It's more packaged, canned garbage for your body that, you can live on it, kind of, and it's going to make you sloggy and unhealthy and, heart disease and all these things, but we'll make it through. And it's, no, man, 4 or 6 ingredients and you can make the most delightful, tasty, delicious, healthy stuff at home, so easily. And so some of these things are just these experiences in learning that, and I do think so much of it starts with reading, right? So much of it starts with reading and education and being exposed to these things. And
and maybe I can't remember if we talked about this. Have you read the book Stolen Focus by Johann Hari?
What's funny? I actually saw a friend of mine recently posted that on social media, but I have not read it myself. No.
I think you would like it. He talks a lot about that and, he frames it as we're in a crisis of attention and it's caused by, I can't remember how many factors he identifies, something like 12, let's say. And one of them is, food. One of them is getting to know other people. A lot of it, of course, is not so much the technology, the hardware itself, but, the social media, the algorithms, et cetera, and sort of how we're spiraling, at least in this country, in many Western countries, down the drain. And it's really kind of frightening because, like you said, so many Americans aren't in a position where they can say, oh, I'm going to take 6 months off and hike the PCT, or even 3 days off and go, anywhere 100 miles from here. Or, have the means to buy, actual, real food, like actual vegetables. So it puts us at a real disadvantage. But one of the things that I think it was in that book that I read was, maybe it was in another, where they talked about, there was a study about reading. And what they found was, and I can't remember exactly how they divided it up, but they had people who just read, fiction, and then they had people who read nonfiction, and they were and they were able to test them for empathy. And what they found was that the people who read fiction, their empathy levels were, hugely disproportionate to the people who just read nonfiction. So they wanted to compare people who were, they were reading, right? And they were both, educated and well enough to read. And I just thought that I was kind of blown away by that study of like, because they were thinking is that, you reading fiction, you're getting into other people's heads, different
Sure.
cultures, different mindsets, different whatevers, and that increases empathy. So if nothing else, I mean, I guess like our message here today is, okay, you may not be able to get out and travel. You may not be able to, get out in nature in any sort of regular way, but you could read a novel.
Yeah, for sure. And those, and that dovetails into more interest in the next novel and learning more about other, and it's like me reading Wild and getting all excited about hiking and backpacking. It is, these things kind of can feed on each other and create positive feedback loops. But of course, we need to be literate and have time to do those things.
Right. And not everybody has the luxury of time or is literate.
Right.
Haven't gotten the right education. And so I don't have all the answers here, that's for sure.
Well, I do, Melissa, and that's what I'm here. And if you just listen to me talk constantly, you'll get most of them.
So what's so interesting, and I hope I'm not going to call you out too much. When I initially asked Josh to be on the podcast, he was like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm the right person." I remember you said you were like dark, or I don't know what it was, and we had a conversation, and I find that like, I don't know. I mean, what you have to say and how you connect with people. And that was what the thing that you said earlier was like, you find I don't know, you didn't say it exactly this way, but I'm gleaning this from you. You find your purpose through that connection. Like that's your aim in life, is to have that connection with another human being, whether it's when you write and somebody else reads it, or if it's that connection that you had, like when you're talking to people in Egypt or, in other travels. It's like, that's where the real deal is. That's where it seems like you've found your purpose. Am I right?
I will tell you that is if there's sort of an abiding desire in my life, it is that constant aim to connect meaningfully. And there are things that accompany that. And what I think I was trying to tell you is I'm not the Hopi, like puppy dogs and rainbows sort of, and then I found that everything's great. I tend to be a little more glib and dark and, don't write happy endings, literally or figuratively. But I do love leaving people at least as good as I found them and at least as whole as I found them, I want people to be okay. And it's funny because I have this odd relationship with my fellows in that I had a hell of a tough time connecting, relating, or appreciating most of them one-on-one. But I genuinely care deeply for humanity. I want us all to be okay, and I want us all to take care of each other. And I do have a strong desire for, to see fairness and equity and justice prevail, generally, legally and otherwise, just in life. And I want things to be right. And not to suggest that I'm some righteous justice warrior who's always, appropriately standing up for the downtrodden and protecting it. I'm not. I'm a coward and, have bad timing and, don't know when to do those things. But that's always my hope, and so even though I don't maybe have an overarching or underlying sort of, straight ahead, singular focus purpose per se, I have a couple principles that seem to keep guiding me and seem to serve as bumpers. And so when I encounter situations, those principles pop up and continue to drive my actions, I hope. And, and part of that, like my writing in the book, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't some guidebook, and it wasn't some like, here's how you do this. It was more of a, here's how fucked up I can be. Here's how I struggle to deal with things in some of the results I have. But my hope is that through that relating, people can go, okay, maybe I'm not such a failure. Maybe I'm at least not alone in my sense of aloneness. I can connect, and people can go, okay, from that foundation of somebody gets it, now I have a chance to kind of spring forward to the next better thing, So I guess I have some little principles that tend to guide me, and I have little causes that are near and dear to me and that I get excited about. But then as I move through the world, yes, the most desirable experience is to connect meaningfully.
Gosh, that's just, I hate to say it, but it's a little bit on the beautiful side, Josh. Sorry, I'm not trying to get all hope and unicorns and rainbows on you. I think it's funny that I hope that people don't have that impression from this podcast or from me that, I'm looking for unicorns and rainbows, because I think we will see them along the way, and they might surprise us. But I too think that, human connection, like that's what we're made for. So I appreciate that. I have some questions that I like to ask everybody. I kind of stole this a little bit from Brene Brown because she does something similar at the end of her podcast. My questions are different and probably not as good as hers. But so here they are. What is the song or musician who changed your life, in air quotes? So like for me, and I think I've shared this before on this podcast, like when I was a teenager, the musician who changed my life was David Bowie. I don't think I could have made it through my teenage years without David Bowie. And so in that way, he I don't know if he changed my life, but he saved my life. So is there like a song or a musician who had that sort of similar effect on you?
Man, that's a tough one. I love so much music and so many musicians, and I'm a huge fan these days of the singer-songwriter, folky Americana folks. The one that first pops to mind, and this is kind of like picking a favorite to me, and I just can't do it, but I know that Amos Lee has a handful of songs that are just the best to me, and one of them is certainly one that I to this day still think might be the best breakup song ever written, and it's called "Chill in the Air." And it's just such a gloriously talented songwriter. And his lyrics are just, they kind of grab your heart right out of your chest and squeeze it and set it on the floor and step on it right in front of you. It's just this
amazing. And what's not to love about that? Right?
I love it. So I like things I know I'm doing, right? When I drank straight bourbon whiskey. I snorted fat, chunky lines of bathtub crank. I eat super spicy foods. I like black, thick coffee. I like to know that I'm experiencing stuff. And it's same with music. I want stuff I can feel, man, to this day,
Yeah, I'm like that too. And the 90s were really good to me for that reason, because, there was just all this angsty, 90s music. It was just like, yeah, I need to feel this stuff. So I love that. Okay. And this is lame, and this is another one of those favorite questions. So, I know you don't like those, but your favorite movie or show right now, just right now, not of all time, just what do you like?
Ooh. Oh man, I'm going to fail this. Okay, so I'm going to just go back to a series that I really, really loved when it came out. One of my first Netflix series I ever watched, 13 Reasons Why.
Oh.
Any familiarity?
Just vaguely, but tell me why that's one of your favorite series.
It was a hilarious tale about rape and suicide. So, no, I don't know. why I'm even pulling that one. It's so long ago. And again, I'm currently watching the second half of the most recent season of Ozark. So love it. You know, I like so many of those things, but I do like some of the first season of True Detective, dark, twisty, turny.
Yeah.
You know, just getting in the weeds of some dark, twisted stuff. I love those things. Very, very much like that stuff. But 13 Reasons Why to me was very like that. They were kind of peeling the layers of this really messed up story that was super tragic, super dark, super painful, and it happened to incorporate, you know, early teenage angst, which I am all about. I am all about that. So.
I'm a fan of early teenage angst, but one of the shows that I know, like you probably, I don't know, you wouldn't like, but that I liked and actually my daughter likes, which is surprising because usually your 14-year-old doesn't like anything that her parents like. But we both watched separately. I think that was a blessing. Sex Education. And it's with Gillian Anderson, who you might remember from the X-Files.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And plus there's great music in it. It's just brilliant music and all about teenage angst. So just on that note, it's fun. It's not dark at all. So not like 13 Reasons Why, certainly not like Ozark, or True Detective. I think I only made it through 3 episodes of True Detective, and I was like, I'm out. This is too much.
The one with Woody Harrelson and
yes.
you weren't feeling it, huh? It was too much.
It was too much. I felt it too much. I was like, this is too much. This is too intense for me. So I may revisit it because it was really good. Okay, final question. And this is a big one maybe for you, or maybe not. I don't know. Advice you wished you had when you were a teenager. So if you could go back now, Josh 2.0 now, and tell Josh, 14, 15, 16 years old, like a really important piece of information, what would you tell
him? I wish if I could have caught me at around, 12, early 12, I would have said for sure, all of those bad ideas, just wait. It's not a never. Just don't do it now. Just hang tight and wait and watch and observe and pay attention to the folks who do engage those bad ideas. That would have certainly been one of them. And then perhaps a more, spiritual thing would be that we are all just a bunch of idiots trying to figure this thing out as we go. And some of us might kind of figure out some of it shortly before we die. But you, just like every other fucking human on this planet, are glorious and perfect and wonderful and lovable and awesome and hilarious and all of those things. And you will find your people. You will find your people.
I think I will end up playing this part of the podcast for my daughter because I think that's brilliant advice, for someone who's young, but anyone really. That's a beautiful way to end this. So if people want to find your book and read it, where do they find it?
Well, thanks for asking, Melissa. It's on the Amazon. You can go directly there and just look up Landing Mediocrity, and it should pop up. Or you can go to my website, themediocreobserver.com, and there's a link there as well. It's also on Goodreads, but no matter what, you're just going to get directed to Amazon. So
cool, and I'll make sure to put that in the show notes too, so that people can check it out and check you out and learn more about you and your kind of crazy but cool and interesting life. And I really appreciate you having spent the last hour or so with us, and talking, because that was really awesome. It was really fantastic.
Well, Melissa, can I just tell you, I am so impressed, and I love that you're doing this. For one, you're good at it, and also I just think podcasts are so cool, and I'm a fan of a handful of really good podcasts, and including yours. So I'm super, super flattered and honored that you even took a run at bringing me on. So thank you so much for having a talk with me. I feel very underqualified to be a guest on a podcast, but it's really fun to have these talks. So it's super fun, and I'm very grateful.
Well, I fully expect that you're going to have limousine rides and, whatever you want to drink in those limos, because you're going to be all over the podcast scene after today.
Good, because I quit my job this morning, so planning on that. So
awesome. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now. Thanks everyone for joining us, and say goodbye, Josh.
Goodbye, Josh.
Hey everybody, it's Melissa, and I'm wondering if you all can relate. Have you ever caught yourself procrastinating, or maybe doubting your abilities, or maybe you have a black belt inner critic like I do or have had that wants to sabotage your every move with judgment and perfectionism expectations? It might keep you stuck, it might keep you anxious and away from your full potential. The Positive Intelligence Program, PQ, is a powerful 6-week journey designed to help you quiet those saboteurs, embrace positivity, and find flow in your life. Through daily practices and weekly focuses, we'll work together to build your mental fitness. The PQ app will guide you every step of the way and support you, and you'll be supported either by myself in a one-on-one or in a small group of like-minded individuals where you can share insights and progress. So reach out, contact me at info@thefullymindful.com to find out how we can work together one-on-one or in a small group today.